a CGL policy is a pretty good deal. It's going to cover a lot more than just a farm policy does. If you decide in the future to host on-farm events that are not exactly related to your farm, if you decide to make jam, do value added, you're going to need one of these policies anyways. So it can be a good deal. Now, what about if you have a drop site at a business? Oftentimes, the business's insurance should cover you, but the problem is that the business may have to pay extra pay extra on their premium because you are there and you are increasing their risk. So oftentimes businesses demand that CSA farmers carry their own commercial policy to cover the drop site. And that can be a real financial burden. But again, they're trying to avoid having to pay those added costs themselves. Okay, so we have another issue relating to drop sites. Okay, horror story number 3. Yeah.
Before you get to that, you do have a question.
Okay. Okay, what's that?
Do I get CGL instead of or in addition to farm liability insurance?
Okay. You definitely, if you own your farm, you definitely want a CGL in addition to farm liability because it can be cheaper that way, and you don't want to go without farm liability insurance. Farm liability is it's like homeowners insurance, but for your farm property. So that's going to cover you, if your barn burns down, if, your feed supplier injures him or herself while delivering your feed. So you definitely need that for all the other routine things that go on your farm. And I've seen it be pretty affordable as an add-on, and I'm not entirely sure if that's the only thing you're trying to buy, such as if you don't own your own property, you only lease farmland. In that situation, you would need to go just CGL, and I think that they increase the rates, obviously, because they're not getting any money out of you any other way. Okay, and I see there's another question here. Can you put in the contract that they pick up at their own risk? So that's the tricky thing about contracts is you can write in there what you want, but it may or may not be enforceable in court. Now, when I was talking about your CSA sale, I said, maybe I can quote myself, you could put in there whatever you want. And that tends to be quite true when it comes to sales. When it comes to liability for injuries, we have other laws that come into play that control whether or not you can actually waive injuries. And that is much harder to make enforceable. So you could try to do that, but I would definitely not rely on that as a defense. And if you were, your problem would also be that you would have to finance your own defense. You would have to hire your own attorney to say, hey, we had a liability waiver. You're responsible. That's really the value that insurance provides, is it does pay for that defense. If I rent my own farm, do I need farm liability insurance? Because the farm owner generally is covering the risk of loss of the farm buildings and generally also covers the operations of the tenants of the farm operation, you don't necessarily need farm liability insurance. Now, depending on your relationship with the landlord, they might expect you to pick up those costs or something else, but as a general rule, that's not really needed. You might want to go for a commercial policy if you can afford it.